we got into it because we had to. I mean, we were in a development and that nobody was buying lots. I mean, I probably called you. I called everyone I knew. Yeah. Come buy lots. Let's go.
So
and we just couldn't.
That was Audubon
Square. A good deal.
Yeah.
But and it hit.
That's where on
Tiger Bend.
Tiger Bend.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. And it was a good deal. We knew it was solid. We didn't overpay for it. The lots were priced right. We didn't have a problem. A lot of people were trying to sell $110,000 lots and then they cut them in half and sold them to D.R. Horton. And we knew we didn't need to do that. So my business partner and I were like, well, I mean, we could either just prop up some cardboard, streetscapes to make it look like it's working, or we can just start building.
We would like to thank our title sponsor, B1 Bank. B1 Bank knows that entrepreneurs like you are always thinking one step ahead. So you need banking solutions that can keep up. It begins with lending. Does your business need working capital or financing for new equipment? How about a real estate or a construction loan? Good news, the B1 lending team is ready to learn your goals and help you find the best lending option available. Now let's talk about uncomplicating your daily cash flow. B1 offers a full array of treasury management services that let you collect funds faster, pay funds more efficiently, and access your information with powerful online tools. Most importantly, B1 understands the value of working with local nonprofits to build a stronger community. They believe in giving back through hands-on involvement with their B1 Community Outreach Program because it's simply the right thing to do. B1 Bank. Be uncomplicated. To learn more, visit b1bank.com. Equal housing lender, member FDIC. Hello, I'm Andrew McClendon, your host of the NXT Entrepreneur Podcast. We're recording from the Propel podcast studio here in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and we welcome our guest, Mr. Scott Bardwell, president and founder of Bardwell Homes. Scott, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
I wanted to start by talking about economics.
Okay.
All right. So we all know what's going on in the home building market. We've seen commodity prices increase. We all hear the stories about lumber increases. In particular, we know some things about the supply chain problems with deliveries. So I wanted to see if you could start telling us, like today, how that inflation is impacting business and what it means to the home buyer.
Yeah, sure. I mean, as a home builder, you're trying to create as much value for the buyer, right?
Yeah.
So the cost of studs doesn't produce a lot of value to the buyer. So it's just we're eating it, and trying to get prices where they need to be, and we have to remove some other value considerations because we don't have a lot of control over the lumber prices right now. But I mean, it's a thing. It's a real thing.
What else are you seeing increase?
Everything's increasing. I mean, just the natural materials like copper and the wood, the shingles. I mean, I also think some of this is jumping on the bandwagon a little bit. When you get quotes from your labor supplier saying prices are going up, you're like, nah, I'm not sure.
Yeah. But
you got a little more control over labor than you do the hard, raw materials. But it's not just the cost. I mean, I was in a meeting this morning on our sales pipeline. I mean, we have the house finished and the front windows are plywooded up because they were supposed to be in, and now they're coming in like 4 weeks. And I'm just trying to work around it. So it's the uncertainty of a lot of different things is what's really challenging.
Yeah.
It's not just one. You can work around one thing.
Right. So you're having to take it on the chin and still trying to deliver the value. Do you have any indication that these prices are going to drop back down to somewhere near normal anytime?
I don't know if they're going to be near normal. Just for what I'm reading and hearing, I'm in a group, a national builder group, and their reports. I mean, we're just way behind on supply. I mean, way behind, to the tune of like 4 million homes in the country. So while Baton Rouge may not have an on-fire market, the national market certainly affects us because the lumber is going to somewhere else. And So it affects the prices for us. So it almost hits us harder because we're normal people trying to build normal houses, and we're affected by crazy stuff going on all over the country.
Yeah.
So that factor is a long-term deal. The short-term, though, I do think there'll be some improvement just from people going back to work and getting the factories rolling again and producing. But, man, those factories, they shut down, you know.
So,
I mean, they shut down 10 years ago, like a good number of them. And then you heat back up, and then you have this hiccup. And, I mean, you don't just open a plant overnight.
Right. And labor's been a big issue across the country. Yeah. A lot of people blamed it on beyond COVID, the unemployment benefits. It disincentivized labor to go to work. Are you seeing that in your business through your subcontractors? Are they having labor shortages at all?
Not so much in them. It's more the warehouse production level. I see it, like in the products, delivering the products, getting them, you know, made, delivered.
But the local hands-on labor, not so much a problem?
Not so much. I don't know why.
Yeah. So prior to COVID, I think of the Baton Rouge market was really strong.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, good reason to suspect that had a lot to do with the, you know, historic low interest rates. But what are some of the other variables that went into play in that heated demand?
Yeah, I mean it's kind of a head scratcher. The only thing I can think is that we grew as a city in the 50s, 60s, 70s. My grandfather built a lot of houses during that era. I mean, they have 7'9" ceilings.
Yeah.
They're not in the best part of town.
Right.
It's just a level of, I guess, the economics of these houses aren't working as like they used to. So people are abandoning them, or they're not choosing them, right? So, and then we're also getting an influx, I think, from the rural populations of Louisiana. I mean, it's not like people are moving here from California,
right?
But I do think there's a city element to our evolution, and people seem to be growing, you know, and coming to Baton Rouge versus New Orleans, and just coming to larger cities. So I can't quite explain it,
right?
But it does seem to be something about that.
But you know, I still see a lot of home building going on, a lot of subdivisions. And I still ask myself, and I've heard other people say this as well, it's like, who is buying all of these homes?
My grandfather said it about Sherwood Forest. He was selling houses for $13,500. Where are all these people coming from paying $25,000 for a house? You know, I mean, it just... Yeah, so at that point, you're just like, it's an age-old question at some level.
But it takes me back to pre-08, 10 recession, where there was, you know, excessive building going across the country because of all the reasons we know about. You know, credit wasn't an issue, and people were overextending themselves. And I was asking myself, and I asked a bunch of people, who is building these houses? I mean, like, you know, there's only so many plant managers, you know, that could have that kind of salary, you know, to afford that kind of home. And
I mean, I think the shift, though, from even 20 years ago is that just the dual income is a real thing.
Yep.
So you got the plant worker and the nurse, and that's the typical home buyer for us.
Yeah.
And I mean, their income together is pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, it's strong, and it gets you into the, you know, the price points that we scratch our head about. Now the million plus, I still can't quite figure it out.
Right.
But
so in COVID, you know, all businesses have had to go through a lot in the last 18 months. But I was curious on your take on how COVID impacted home building, and that a lot of people working remotely, right? And then a lot of people found that was pretty cool. And I was just curious if you saw where, you know, people are now looking for homes with that extra bedroom to be an office.
Yeah, definitely.
That's happening.
Yeah, definitely. Or, you know, a better configuration because they're spending more time there. It's not just where they're crashing at night. There's, they're walking around their whole house even. So it's not just the bedroom. It's just they want something newer, nicer, reward themselves. There's a level of that going on. I mean, honestly, the way we've developed, like just trying to build with porches and just focusing on people, I just think it really, really got highlighted during COVID with people being home and being able to be outside, connect to people without just having a garage in front of your house and not seeing anybody. So, for us, I think that drove a lot of the demand. We're selling to people's parents, people's kids, they're just, people are more connected now. They appreciate it more.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. I was just thinking of the, like the home office aspect of it, but
porches, side porch, front porch, seeing people, not just staring at, concrete all the time.
Yeah.
It's a thing.
Yeah, for sure. And in my neighborhood, people were getting out and, meeting on the street even and sitting around in a big circle and keeping social distance, but connecting because they had really lost that. And I saw that as being one, potential that positive that came out of the out of COVID. But so, Scott, you've in Bardwell Homes, you've developed a reputation of building a sophisticated, beautiful, elegant home, and you market those very well. And look, I look at them and I fall in love with them myself, but that doesn't happen by accident. And I was just curious if you could kind of step us through how you got to the point in your business where you've elevated the product to a point where it's sophisticated and beautiful and desirable.
Well, thanks for noticing.
You do a really good job of that.
Appreciate that. Part of me would say I don't know, honestly, another way to do it. It's just kind of the way I operate. But I think fundamentally, home builders have come through the ranks in different ways, either as a trade or as a business owner or whatever. And I've kind of grown up through it, living it and seeing it from the development side and just experiencing it in other communities I lived in. So I'm a businessman. I'm a finance major from Texas A&M with an I, and I value professionals. And so early in my career when Richard Carmouche said, give you 2 bits of advice, audit an estimating class to make sure you know your cost, 100%, and build pretty houses, like hire an architect, not just a draftsman, someone skilled. And honestly, I took both of those to heart. I audited an LSU class 15, 16 years ago. And honestly, I don't think we've ever built a home that wasn't designed by an architect. And I think that does show. it's a skill. We hire interior designers to do, our design work or staging. I don't know. So I think valuing that brings a level that people recognize and appreciate. And by doing it in mass, we're able to bring more beauty, more sophistication to a product line that otherwise would be overlooked, I think. So I don't know. I don't know if that answers your question, but
it's that is. You know that a lot went into it. That there was a dedicated process to delivering that, and I appreciate that insight. So how many homes are you building a year, would you say?
50 to 60.
Yeah. And if you look back, when did you start Bardwell Homes?
That was 2009 when I got my license.
Okay.
I closed my first house 2010 in Audubon Square, and that's how we started growing.
And so how many? So yeah, I remember talking to you back then, and then you kind of bumped up to. First of all, we got into it because we had to. We were in a development, and that nobody was buying lots. I probably called you. I called everyone I knew. Yeah. Come buy lots. Let's go. So and we just couldn't. That was Audubon.
Audubon Square. A good deal.
Yeah.
But
and
it hit
that's where on
Tiger Bend.
Tiger Bend.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, and it was a good deal. We knew it was solid. We didn't overpay for it. The lots were priced right. We didn't have a problem. A lot of people were trying to sell $110,000 lots, and then they cut them in half and sold them to D.R. Horton, and we knew we didn't need to do that. So my business partner and I were like, well, we could either just prop up some cardboard, streetscapes to make it look like it's working, or we can just start building. And I didn't have a lot of other things to do. I didn't want to worry. So we just started building. And Chip Blair was in there. We had hired him to build a couple houses for us. And he graciously just was like, let's, he gave me a sub list. He just said there's not enough room in this boat, for two people to make it. So he really helped me get started in the business of construction. It's like very specific. And so that's how we started. So after that, it was probably, 5 to 10 houses a year. And then just recently, the past 2 years, have we, gone 20, 30, 50 houses.
Yeah. So that's really still in the heart of the recession, 2010, when you're coming out of that, right? But it was a very
perfect time to start.
Yeah.
No, it really was. Everybody wanted to work. I got everybody's attention. They would take whatever I'd pay. It was a good time, actually.
Well, that was a great development. You have that. You've done this in a number of projects where you have kind of the great lawn amenity, if you will, which is most developers won't do, right? That's they use every square inch of land they can for lots and to create revenue. I did want to comment because you started in a tough time, at least as far as the economy goes. But prior to that, that's when you started your home building. Prior to that, you had been doing some other developing.
Correct. We were developing subdivisions and condos and different smaller infill projects.
So you would have been developing subdivisions and selling lots.
Correct, to builders.
Yeah, and you did some townhome type stuff. And what I noticed about there were a couple of instances during those years when the market was pretty sketchy, where I noticed you may have got in a deal, maybe took down the land, and then changed your mind and exited the property. And I always looked at that and go, man, that's bold. That's strategic and intelligent. And it reminded me of a friend who told me one time to never fall in love with your deal.
Yeah.
Right? But that is easier said than done.
Yeah, definitely.
You get so much energy by the time you close on that land. You've got thousands of hours of planning and involved in that, and to then turn around. So you did that a couple of times that I noticed. And like I said, I remember going, man, it's good to know that it's okay to back out. It's okay to step away.
Yeah, the ones I'm thinking of, and like Audubon Square, I didn't.
Right.
I saw it all the way through.
Right.
It's almost like, it almost to a fault. If you ask my business partner and my wife, I do change my mind a fair amount, but I'm always assessing, right?
Right.
But for every project we do, I'm trying to successfully conclude it.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm not the right one to see it through. We're realizing this person's better at this than I am.
Yeah.
Or there's no one else better than us to see, so it still has the end in mind.
Sure.
It's just what's the best way to get there.
Yeah.
And
so your way out of Audubon was to build, and that's where you started your home building. It's coming back to me now because I did talk to you around that time. I was part of that was in making that decision. I had this question here: was that like your gut, or is that your investor? Is that a kind of a brain
gut.
trust?
It's gut.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So did you always start? Did you always have an investor partner?
Yeah.
Do you now today still?
Yeah, I've had. I kind of joke about it. my father and I started together. I mean, he was my investor, and I married my wife. That's my other partner. And then I've had a family behind me for most of my career. Yeah. One family. So I've had 3 partners, and I don't do a lot of deals with a lot of different people.
Right.
And I think I've been very fortunate, to have that stability, that trust, and it creates a longer view when it's like that. So yeah, I'm currently in a partnership on everything I do with one investor.
Okay. And that's been the same investor
for a while.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
It kind of gives you a little more platform to think long term.
Yeah. So you mentioned your grandfather and your father. So you're really a 3rd generation.
With all different skill sets, but yes.
Yeah.
In the same industry.
Yeah. And was there times where did your father work with your grandfather?
They never did.
Yeah.
They never did. I mean, my dad mowed lawns when he had 150 houses for sale in the 60s. My dad mowed them all, up and down the whole street, waiting for them to sell, and they never sold. So that was his extent, Yeah. But they never worked directly.
Yeah. And has your father worked with you?
Just as my partner early on, but he, I think he did it right. He's my dad.
Yeah.
And I think he just intuitively kind of wanted me to do it on my own just so that we could preserve that, because I can see it working both ways.
Sure. Well, he's a great guy, and I always enjoyed the time that I spent with him. And
he's a big fan, big cheerleader. I mean, and a big support.
Yeah.
To me, I mean, just helpful. I run lots of things by him still.
Well, that's fantastic. So why don't you tell us where Bardwell Homes is building today?
Okay, we're wrapping up a filing in U Club called Veranda. We've got 7 houses left to build in there. That was been a really neat deal to do.
What price point are those?
Those are $450 to $600.
And how many lots did you have there?
We had 68.
68. Wow.
Mm-hmm. And that was just a neat partnership with Sinclair and the U Club group, because they had a smaller lot product in mind, but didn't want to manage a builder group through that. And so we were fortunate enough to work with them and build it out. And I think it's been a good project for them. It's definitely been a good project for us.
Yeah.
And I think it helped keep U Club relevant, and current with offering a new product. Because we're getting a lot of people where their family lives in the back in an $800,000 house, and another family member lives in Veranda at $450,000. Right. And that's unique in a community to offer that varying price point.
Yeah, that's cool.
Clark's Ferry, we bought some lots over there. It's off of Veens and Hooshutu near Highland. Great location. We really like it. We got 25 lots we're building out over there. We're in Central Magnolia Square. Been a big investor in there. Developed lots, building houses, and it's been a long pull, but we're really seeing it come out really well now.
You did the land development on that one?
Mm-hmm.
Now, on Clark's Ferry, did you develop the land there?
No, we bought the lots.
Yeah,
somebody kind of like, I think in their gut, said, I'm not the guy to finish this, and called us. And so it worked out well for us and worked out well for them, I think.
Yeah, I think that reputation, has its dividends like that.
Mm-hmm.
And you had mentioned the Veranda initially. Did you develop those lots as well?
It was a perfect partnership. I mean, Sinclair let us lay out what we were looking for.
I see.
And so what we had learned from Audubon Square with lot sizes for alleys and things, he leveraged our knowledge on that. So we were able to lay it out. He priced it out. We negotiated the lot prices, and he developed it.
Wow, fantastic.
Yeah. So, I would have liked to have made the land profit also, but, right. It was a good combination. So we did a takedown schedule over years. We're actually building in Ruzan, and that's been a good deal to see, really Inquist turn that one around.
Are you buying lots sporadically, or are you buying?
We buy groups of lots, not whole. I can't afford a whole filing in there, so we're taking down 9 more lots.
I see.
And Level will take down 40 lots.
Right.
You know, so it's that kind of ratio for us.
Yeah.
But I mean, Level's done really well in there. We've done really well.
Yeah. John Inquist is amazing in his ability to get things done. And that turned into a great development.
But I like Roseanne a lot, and I like U Club. And so there's not a lot of options in Baton Rouge. So we actually just bought lots in Terabella and Covington, which we're real excited about. So we're about to start building over there. It's about an hour away.
Sure.
And then they're doing more filings in the future, and they're looking for a builder to kind of come in and take more charge and offer more inventory. And so I think Covington will be a good market for us. They appreciate the architecture. And
absolutely. How many lots did you pick up there?
9.
Wonderful. So why don't we take a quick break, pick up that story on the other side, and we'll get a word from our sponsor. One of our sponsors, MBD Maintenance, is excited to announce that after 25 years, they're rebranding their company name to Pivotal. It's the same ownership, same staff, same location, just a new name that better represents the services that they provide their clients across the Southeast United States. Pivotal does commercial building construction and renovation. They do tenant improvement work and retail and office facilities. They do installation of dock doors in distribution centers, storm and fire damage repair, and catastrophe recovery for national disasters. The team at Pivotal is simply the best. They're experienced, they crush schedules, and they have an impeccable safety record. If Pivotal can help you with your next project, you can find them online at pivotalperforms.com. And we are back with Scott Bardwell, president and founder of Bardwell Homes. We touched on the fact, Scott, that you're a third-generation home builder, and I was just curious what your grandfather would think if he saw you and the quality of home that you're building, the price point that you're building.
He'd think I was crazy. Too nice and too expensive.
Exactly.
He was a VA home builder, man. I mean, I was talking to my aunt last week on vacation, and she was like, "You need to know this," and it was really cool. I've got pictures of him. I mean, it was Bardwell and Holloway, and it was late 50s, early 60s, and he had a $4 million line of credit in the 60s with a bank out of New York, and I have the pitch book that he used, and he never filed bankruptcy. Never filed it, but he went up there and somehow got into the lender's office, you know, and said, "Listen, I have a problem. It's not going to be your problem, and we're going to figure this out." And I mean, he slowly sold off 150 spec houses at one time, and I mean, when it stopped in the early 60s, it stopped. And so anyway, he was at a lower price point, production, you know, big time, a little too big time, honestly. Yeah. For the day.
Yeah, so back in the 60s, homes were selling for
$13,500.
Yeah, and I think maybe in the late 60s, my parents bought a home for maybe like $24,000.
Where are they all coming from?
Yeah, exactly. No, but I do sense that just that generation. I mean, so much has happened and improved and changed in those two generations. I imagine he would just be in complete awe.
Yeah, I mean, I think he'd also be very proud.
Yeah.
I mean, and of his own legacy. I mean, it's his, and I mean, we talk about my dad's dad, but my mother's father and her grandfather were in the building business also in Griffin, Georgia. So I've got pictures of probably a dozen houses they all built, you know, Wheaton and Sons. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, very cool. So, other family members involved in the business?
My sister.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's been working with me for 8 years.
Wow.
So we're 11 years apart. I'm 11 years older. And, when she moved to town, she had a job and was getting a little frustrated.
Yeah.
I was like, well, I think I had one superintendent at the time. And I was like, well, why don't you try working with me, you know, and you can help me out, I know.
Yeah.
And so let's see how this works. And, I mean, I couldn't do it without her.
What does she do?
Everything.
Yeah.
I mean, literally. I mean, we've got 14 employees now. I mean, she's done every aspect. I mean, she was a superintendent for a while, just kind of and checking on the field and accounting. We've changed systems 3 times. Sale. I mean, she's a well-rounded.
Yeah, that is
participant.
Fantastic. Mm-hmm. So, how do you differentiate Bardwell Homes from your competition? What do you do? What do you do different?
One of our taglines is "built for living," and I think in business, I think people do business for lots of different reasons. We build houses for people. I mean, we make a living at it. We do well. But if that's your goal, it's going to come out a little differently than just we crank out houses to make as much money as we can. We crank out houses because that's all I know how to do. Right. I build custom homes just to make people happy. I mean, whatever it is, it comes out.
Right.
And I think we build for people. And we're thinking about it from the design to the way it lives. And I think that is what differentiates us. And even through the selection sales process, I mean, as we've refined that, because we started from scratch, going from custom homes to more of a production mentality, we're trying not to lose that.
But you're not a production home builder. I mean,
We're the best of both worlds.
Okay.
Because we build for people,
right,
but we use the discipline and the methodology of production.
Yeah.
I mean, we use a system that DSLD could use to build our houses.
So
and that helps us.
Yeah. So if you consider, 2 ends of the spectrum, one is production, one is custom.
We're in the middle.
You're right in the middle. Yeah, that's very cool.
We like to think of ourselves as like a BMW factory. Like it's customization, it's great product, right, but it's built in 3 days in Spartanburg, South Carolina.
Right. Yeah, very cool. You mentioned Texas A&M. You went to college there.
I did.
And but you're from Baton Rouge, right?
I grew up here.
And so how did you end up there? And you mentioned finance was your major?
Yeah, pre-tops. I mean, I've got kids in college now, and it's a different era. So back then, Texas A&M out-of-state tuition was cheaper than in-state LSU tuition.
No kidding.
And so I was, looking around at engineering, Auburn, Georgia Tech, Texas A&M. And I mean, they say Aggies are born, they're not made. I mean, I showed up on campus and just loved it. And just enrolled. I switched my major about a month into engineering, calculus. And went to business, and they have an exceptional business school, and so it was a great education. Great education.
And what did you do after college?
I moved to Charlotte, North Carolina, and worked at Bank of America, which was back then it was Nations Bank, right when it was growing. Dramatically.
Yeah, that's cool. So you got the finance degree, and you're like, I'm going big time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're in real estate investment banking. I bundled all the mortgage loans and sold them as bonds, and I was the little analyst back there doing all the ratings.
You're the guy.
Not my fault. You're the one that bought it.
So how long did you do that?
4 years.
4 years.
Yeah.
And did you come back to Baton Rouge after that?
Yeah. I actually, I was there I wanted to do something after 2 years, and I came back here and visited with a lot of my dad's friends and just different people. And I was like, it's just not time. I just don't. So I stayed another 2 years, and it was great there. But so when I came back, my dad and I were already syncing up, like, okay, if you get a project that I can help you with, that would be a good time. Yeah. And so that worked out.
So how did it start? What did the start look like?
The start looked like my dad was going through an approval process for Laurel Hill subdivision off of Tiger Bend, 55 lots. He and Newt Ogden had done Rose Hill, 92 lots.
Yeah.
And so I went to the Jones Creek branch library and watched him get completely, bloodied by homeowners. That was really one of my first weeks here.
Yeah.
And I got approved. And then I was really his on-site guy. I was out there every day just watching it get built and understanding, learning how to read the plan, the infrastructure plans.
So was your dad, he was doing the subdivision development. Mm-hmm. He wasn't going vertical. He wasn't building
My
homes.
dad never built a home.
I see.
Never. So it was always, and he had a group of builders that followed him.
Right.
He was kind of like Hardy to add. Just a good.
Yep.
Princeton knew how to pick the right location and the price point.
So he was a good site selection guy and a good development guy
Yep.
and price point guy.
Yep.
And but he would sell the lots to home builders,
Yep.
right? So you then take us how you got to the point where you're now developing, because you started.
Yeah. With him, he found that deal. And then one of his good friends, Chat Kleinpeter, his parents owned the last piece of Oak Hills. And that was where Providence, that's where we developed that property. And so it was 21 lots on, I think it was 9.5, 10 acres. Mm-hmm. And that deal was when I really felt like I was able to put my thumbprint. Like, we did Laurel Hill, it was conventional.
Right.
I had a small salary. I drew on the profit or whatever. And then that deal, I worked with Chris Remsen, and he, figured it out, unlocked it, and really did a good job. Like I said, I think we ought to do some alleys and make it. I mean, he did the central green concept. Yeah. I can't take credit for that. Right. I mean, he was the designer. And so that when we went through that deal, that's when I felt like, okay, I really got a taste for it. Like, I like this. I'm good at it, and I want to do more of it. And I mean, it's hard to find deals. That's the challenge. I mean, I wish I could do a bunch, but I just can't do all the ones I want to do. I mean, I can't.
I don't think most people can appreciate how difficult it is to find a buildable piece of land.
Yes,
it's
that you can make money on.
Right. It's at the right price in the right flood zone. Right. And the terrain's right, yep. And all the utilities are there, and it's in a desirable spot. Well,
but what's unique about like that family, another family where we developed Stanford Oaks together,
right?
It's the relationships we had with the owners, the trust they had in us. They maximized their dollar value by giving us some time to work out the highest and best use. So that's the ideal situation where the landowner isn't just a commodity seller. Like, they care how this is going to end up. And that's where we really shine, I think.
Yeah, I can see that. And that involves a lot of trust.
Yes.
Right? They have to know that you're going to get into their land, and they only are going to benefit if it's successfully developed and sold.
Yep.
Otherwise, they could end up with a mess on their property and not have gotten anything for it.
Yep.
Really. There's opportunities in our careers to negotiate a land sale, and the seller, it really matters to them that the buyer is going to do justice to that property, and they're I had an instance of that several years ago, and I had to sit down on the front porch. I didn't have to. I wanted to, but we sat down for 3 hours on their front porch swing and just talked. And they had these beautiful live oaks. And I knew that any
They're
developer...
expensive.
Yeah. Well, I knew that, they were not in a great place as far as,
Maximizing,
thank you. But we were able to design it so that they created an entry where you came under the canopy of the oaks, and we spent a lot of money with an engineer doing the right substrate work to protect the trees, and they were far enough apart to allow a road to go through. But it made for a majestic entry, and we lost 3 or 4 lots in there. But because we had this beautiful entry, we could, charge a little bit more on the lots, and it was worth it. And once I shared that vision with them, it was a done deal. But it's not always about paying the highest price. If you're going to do a good job on their property, or in the instances you're referring to where you can, they can become part of the deal and get paid on the way out, which is all about trust, right?
Yep.
So,
and it takes time. I mean, you're a thoughtful person. I mean, it just takes time to think through that stuff. A lot of people they're going so fast, they just don't take the time. And I think that's a differentiator, you know.
Yeah. Yep. And so Providence was with your dad? Mm-hmm. And then what was after Providence?
Townhome deal off of Perkins at Hyacinth. Bromley did that deal, 32 lots. Katrina, you know, had an impact on that deal. It was a little early. I think now it's doing great. It's right in the middle of all the commercial that's there now. Yeah, it was a little early, I think.
Yeah, so I built vertical for you out there.
Yep.
And then I ended up taking down some of the lots in the back later on.
Yep.
And that's probably where we first met, right?
Yeah.
And,
because LaSalle was after that. You built LaSalle for us.
I built some condos for you. That's right.
I
forgot about that one. Yeah. So that was
You're a good builder, you know.
Oh, well, thank you. That was your foray then on Bromley to go vertical.
Mm-hmm. It was,
right?
yes.
And then after Bromley, you did
those are tough margins when you're not the builder. Like that's what was challenging.
Yeah.
There. I mean, you got to price it to make money, and you're paying a builder.
Yeah.
That's what I learned on that one.
Well, and then there was a lot of craziness in the market, but LaSalle was another condo development. I think that was 24.
24.
And you went vertical on that. We built that for you as well. But I want to tell you, you know, back then, Scott, that was quite a ways ago, right?
2004 to 2006.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, you know, 15, 16 years ago. We were a little bit younger then. Mm-hmm. And, but you know, I saw in you someone that was honest, straightforward, conscientious, and like a pleasure to do business with because of all that. So the trust factor was really palpable there, and I always respected you for that, and I always was a cheerleader for you and watching you grow your business. And
I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah, so I had that firsthand experience with you, and I feel a bond with you, but it was forged back in that way. And so as I started to watch you grow your business throughout these years has been a real treat for me.
Thanks for saying that.
Yeah, you're welcome. So what happened after LaSalle? What'd you do next?
LaSalle, we bought. We were going to crank it up a notch, and do a large condo development, and that would be one where my gut said, "I think I've had enough."
Was that Lobdell and Goodwood?
Yeah. I mean, I still think it's a great location.
Well, it's just now, just in the last couple of years.
Right. Well, I mean, you got $2 million houses right next to it.
Right next to it. And who would have thought that back then?
Right. So, but that was the kind of deal where honestly I was pursued on that. Like I was playing, Remsen Haley drew it up. We were, gearing up to go. I mean, I think I'd even visited with you and a couple other contractors, like trying to, see what was going on. And then there was a builder that knew a lot more about building than me that wanted it. And so we sat down and worked out a deal, and he took it. And then the market did turn on him.
It did turn. And maybe that's one of the examples where I was like,
that was not my smartness. that was gut and serendipity. I mean, I just,
Yeah, well, it struck me as being brilliance.
Well, I maybe from a distance, but when you saw me sucking my thumb at night, worrying about it before I sold it, I don't think.
Those were some tough times.
Yeah.
So,
did that, and then Audubon Square would be next, and then that's when we started getting into home construction.
Yeah, and as you mentioned earlier, by default, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So.
But I love it. Now I'm a home builder.
Oh,
I mean,
absolutely.
20 million of revenue a year, and I mean, I feel like we're pretty good at it. So now it's a good combo to do development and building.
I mean, don't you love how stuff works out like that? I mean,
this is a story that's working out.
Yeah.
I've got plenty others that we can go down the trail that aren't working.
But Yeah. So I was thinking as you were on the first part of the segment, you had this life pre-Bardwell Homes where you were doing the vertical. I mean, you were doing the horizontal construction, and then you did go vertical on some townhomes and condos, and but it was once you got into Audubon Park where then the market wasn't working in your favor, as you mentioned, and you said, look, if we're going to go vertical.
It was a long time coming, though. I mean, I sat down with Newt Ogden at one point and was like, how can we build out Providence? I mean, the principles, Covey's book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, I mean, begin with the end in mind. I think that's in development. That's what you do. Like,
Right.
Who's going to live here? What can they afford? What's it going to look like? And then you bring it all the way back, and it is difficult to develop land and sell lots and make people do what you think ought to be done.
Right.
Very difficult
Yeah.
and frustrating, honestly. And so it's a good combination to be able to build it out too, because then you can build it the way you envisioned it, for better or for worse, But I mean, we've done a pretty good job with it, and it's just satisfying. I mean, it's just a lot less, hand wringing.
Yeah. Very good. Let's get a word from our sponsor, and we'll be right back. We would like to thank Gear Train for their support of the NXT Entrepreneur Podcast. Gear Train is a national program management company that specializes in the inspection and audit of conveyor systems, VRCs, robotics, and material handling equipment. Gear Train also manages routine maintenance and repair programs, as well as emergency callouts for clients all across the United States. Gear Train technicians have the experience to keep your automated equipment systems running at peak output. For all of your inspection, audit, and maintenance needs, reach out to Gear Train. They can be found online at geartrainperforms.com. And we are back with Scott Bardwell with Bardwell Homes. So, Scott, one thing I've noticed that you do really well is brand. And I find it fascinating that as a developer, you're starting with a piece of dirt. And yet, when you market that property and you look at your website, you're not just seeing renderings of front elevations of homes. You're seeing like a lifestyle that goes with that community, a brand for the community. A lot goes into the name. And I'm fascinated with how you do that so well, because it's obvious a lot of work goes into that, and it strikes me as that's like one of your real strong suits.
It's the most fun and the hardest part, I think. Naming streets is the hardest part of the job. But I feel like a name does exude a lifestyle, and it exudes the spirit of what you're trying to achieve. And, so beginning with the end in mind, a lot of people talk about empathy as a big business principle. I mean, I've been thinking it's important for a long time. And it's sort of like, just who's going to live here? What's important to them? Like, why would they buy this product over what's down the street or in another city? And then, you surround yourself with really smart, good people, like marketing designers. I mean, Crossroads Professionals is who we use now. We've worked with Mesh, worked with Cognition out of Charlotte, North Carolina. I mean, there's good people that know how to put their finger on that. And so you put the two together. What is my vision? And then they can help put it out there. And it's fun.
Yeah. So you have the name, but then you have the brand of that name and the icon and the coloring and the font and everything. Right. And then all that has to blend in with, it has to play the part for the price point of the house that you're putting in there, right? If you have a $700,000.
A lot goes into it.
Yeah. And you do it well, is my point. And so I think what I'm hearing you say is you're passionate about that process, and then you bring in, and you're empathetic, and then you bring in the professionals to help.
Put the right typology on it and the right brand message. I mean, I was thinking about 7550 LaSalle That was the name of that project. It's not real, warm and fuzzy, but it was by design. I wanted it to feel more like a big city. So it's a municipal address.
Right.
It was a destination. And then the tagline was life, period, simplified, period.
Yep.
And it just like, who's going to buy this?
Right.
People who want to lock and leave and go scuba diving and come back a week later. I mean, it's just they want a simple life right next to town center.
Yeah.
So it's just, it's not the same as other communities.
Yeah. Yeah. It had a certain sophisticated feel to it, because that was kind of what you were seeing in other markets that was going on. So there are times where you develop the land, put in the infrastructure, and go vertical and build homes. And there are other times where you will buy lots that another developer has developed, and you're able to just buy the lot and go vertical. I mean, you could start building the next day.
Correct.
Right? So there's pros and cons to each of those delivery methods. Talk to us about those.
Yeah. I mean, our business model is to do a little bit of both.
Right.
What's tricky about buying lots is they need to be consistent with our brand. Like, we don't just go buy lots from anyone.
Right.
Like, we like to have a little say in how that looks, or we like to understand what was going on when it was developed.
Right.
So that what we think we can build and add value will actually be appreciated. But it's really nice to be able to do that, because we can start sooner. So like we are looking for lots and land right now. I mean, we're almost out of both.
Right.
And so it helps fill a short-term gap. But I do think long-term, I mean, it is much more beneficial for us to be patient, develop the land. There's more risk, but there's also more profit in the land.
Right.
And then it's built the way we think it ought to be developed. And, so they both have merit. And some of it's just what's presenting itself at the time. Land is very expensive right now, and so are lots. I'm going to overpay for one. I might want to just overpay for the lots and move it through the system a little faster than overpay for land and have to work that deal out for the next several years.
That's fascinating.
So I'm just I don't have a great answer. I'm just trying to figure it out right now. But they do have pluses and minuses, both.
Yeah, for sure. So let me ask you, how have you done in managing your success on a personal level? I mean, you started, you went through some challenging times like all of us did. By all outward appearances, your business is thriving right now. And how is that working for you on a personal level?
Well, when you work for a long time and don't have success, it makes the success not as exciting. It's sort of thank God it's working.
Finally.
Yeah, 20-year overnight success, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it's just, I'm a family guy. I mean, married to Anna Catherine, got 3 kids, and live 2 doors down from my parents, and I work in my church and chairman of the Dunham School Board, and I spend a lot of time outside of work. And I love work, but it's not what defines me all the way. So it's just kind of it's fun to provide jobs and do it well, and I love it. But I guess that's the benefit of it not being all of me, is the success and the failures don't define me all the way.
So do you bring that mentality into your office? Do you have what you feel is a culture in your business? I mean, it sounds like.
Yeah, I probably do. I mean, I think some people want ping pong tables and stuff in the office, and we don't do that. I mean, I kind of look at it like, we're not your family. We're not the playtime. Yeah. It's work.
Right.
And everybody that works for me works really hard, and we reward them. I think we pay well. We've got 401ks and health benefits. I mean, we really, that's the deal, and then it allows them to go on vacation, which we almost require.
Yeah.
And, I think sometimes it gets a little mixed up. And so I guess that's how I've infused it. I mean, I go home.
Yeah.
And I don't think about work.
Yeah. Well, that's not an easy thing to do in this business. But I
try
do
to go home and not think about work.
Yeah, exactly. But look, there's a lot to be said for building a work environment where you can create a great career opportunity for your employees. And yeah, we got to come here. We got to work hard. And if we do this and we're successful, then we're all going to benefit. And you'll be able to look back on your career and say, man, we did something great, and I was rewarded as well. So
it's fun building houses. I mean, everybody can drive by and see what they've contributed to, you know, and it's, but we try to also make it the intangibles work and the tangibles, where they're paid well. I mean, want it to be a good place to work where people are, energized and enthusiastic about it, bringing new ideas.
So you've been involved with the Baton Rouge Growth Coalition. Tell us about your work with that organization.
I mean, I think the Baton Rouge Growth Coalition has really done a lot for the industry. I mean, you're kind of seeing right now, it's a pendulum.
Right.
And it's just, someone's got to be there to swing the pendulum back when regulations go crazy. I think the HBA locally has really stepped up and filled a gap also. So between those two organizations, I'm real proud of, the work we're doing in both. I think, you talk about trust. I think that's a big part of the Growth Coalition. It's not a shadow government. It's not a mafia. It's not a threat to the government. It's like, hey, look, we want to pay more taxes and property taxes. We want to progress things. Let us help you figure that out. Like, this isn't working. This takes 6 months to get sewer lines approved because you're videoing everything and you're doing things that are hanging up our projects. We know you want good sewer lines, but you also need us to finish so that we can start paying property taxes.
Right.
So that it's a needed voice.
Right.
I mean, otherwise you got a government going crazy and a bunch of individuals, fighting, brush fires.
It's fascinating to see how different municipalities develop in different parts of the country. And, I think many parts of Louisiana, there's been this challenge of the development getting ahead of the infrastructure. Some parishes more so than others. And then you can go to
Conroe, Texas, or North Dallas.
Yeah, North Dallas is what I was going to say. And the roads go out in front of the development, and they're built as if they're roads that will be needed 25 years down the road. And it is so impressive to see. And I think one reason that is so impressive to me is because it's so different than what I've seen here. But you have to have a strong tax base to make that happen. But it takes great leadership.
Regional planning. We're a Napoleonic state, and don't tread on me, and everyone's got their little fiefdoms.
Yeah.
And it's just hard to get together.
Yeah.
Build another bridge over a river.
Right.
Where you go out to Philadelphia and you can see, or Pittsburgh and see, 10 in one stretch.
Yeah.
So
why don't we start to wrap up by you giving us your vision for Bardwell Homes as you look down the road? I mean, do you sit around and say, like, I would like in 5 years or 10 years or 20 years to be at this level? Or,
I mean, I have two different thought processes. One, the retail side of what is the company going to look like. The other is personal goals and like how I think they merge and they fit together with the understanding that like when you build homes, it's like owning a grocery store. I mean, you're out. You got to fill the shelf again. And that's a hard process.
right.
Very hard. Talked about buying land, buying lots, making it look right, and then selling it.
Right.
We're good at it. Well, I think the evolution for us will be doing it for ourselves. Like figure out a way to build and own, whether that be apartments, communities of homes, commercial, some version of that where we can say, look, all that effort we put into it, we'll save on the taxes, we'll hold it, and we'll be more patient. I didn't have that luxury 5 years ago. I mean, I had to feed a family and get net income, but now I think that's part of it. And then I also think, big deals are hard to come by. I'm not sure we'll ever be able to do a large deal like a Santa Maria or a U Club, but that would be a dream, I think, to be able to orchestrate something like that. But in the meantime, we'll just, keep chopping away at our little sections and doing the best we can, finding the good spots.
I was curious to what extent you thought your finance degree played a role in your success.
I mean, honestly, I go to a business coach every 2 weeks.
Really?
She's a trained accountant, CPA, marriage counselor, and realized most marriages, a lot of their stress is from the work. And so she just started coaching business people. I've been going there for 6 or 7 years. And, but what I've come to appreciate is I'm thankful. I mean, I tell my kids, you're getting a minor in business and you're taking an accounting class and a finance class. I mean, I think a lot of people are in business and don't know how to read a balance sheet, don't understand cash flow, don't understand return on investment. I mean, there's concepts, but then there's like understanding long-term assets, short-term assets, liquidity. I mean, certain things like that I learned a lot. I mean, I know a lot about finance, and I think it has had a big impact.
Yeah.
Not that I can explain where my cash is at any moment, because of that, I'm not sure anyone can. But it's somewhere in between the W, the I, and the P, or, in WIP, or it's COGS, cost of goods sold, somewhere in there.
That's fantastic. Well, Scott, continued success. I talked about how much of an impression you made on me, 18 or 20 years ago as a young, aggressive developer. And I've never forgotten about, how good a job you did with that and how conscientious and aggressive you were. And it was always a pleasure to work with you. I consider you a friend, and I'm a big cheerleader of yours, and really pleased with all the success that you've had, and I know you'll continue to have great success. So thank you for coming on the podcast, and we really appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Andrew. I appreciate it.
In preparing for this podcast, I was reliving some memories of meeting Scott some 20 years ago. And he left an impression upon me as being a young man who was honest, trustworthy, operated with integrity, and transparent. And then we have this 20 years of experience. And I think what I took away from his stories is the power of starting with the end in mind, of being empathetic and building for the people. Thirdly, never giving up. No matter what the challenges are, Scott always found his way onto the next deal. And then fourthly, following your gut. And Scott did that really well. Now, he's still the same person that he was when I first met him, honest and trustworthy. But he has all those decades of experience now, and that is the key to his success. Really a great time visiting with him, and a pleasure to have him in the studio. We appreciate you guys watching, and we will catch you next time. We would like to thank our title sponsor, B1 Bank. They can be found online at b1bank.com. The Next Entrepreneur is produced by Propel Productions. You can find more information at propelyourstory.com. Don't forget to subscribe to the Next Entrepreneur Podcast and hit the bell for notifications. You can also follow us on social media. The links are in the description below.